Okay, we're letting everybody into the room. Come
There
on
we
in.
are. What's up, Mark? How are you? Welcome back to Florida. I thought you were
I
supposed
know
to be in South Africa.
I am. I'm supposed to be in Cape Town right now, and it would have been 1:30 in the morning. Um, so yeah, it did happen. We took off and we were diverted to come back and land. So when we took off, we heard this big bang, and then the whole plane started vibrating, like on the left-hand side when we first took off. But then we got up in the air and everything was going. It was a 787, a Dreamliner. So then everything we get up into the air and we're going, and then the pilot comes on and goes, "Just so you guys know, on the left hand side, the flaps, you know where the flaps are, that slows the plane down. Whoops. So when the flaps area that slows that area that loosened up when we took off, and then it fell into the ocean. So we had no flap on that side to come back. So they circle back. We're like an hour into the flight. Now we're in like 10. So we circle back to come back into Newark. And he's like kind of like telling people, hey, we have to go, we have to dump the fuel because we had 15 hours worth of fuel on the plane. So it was a lot of fuel that they had to dump because the plane was heavy and it had cargo too. So it was worried about, the plane coming in heavy, because we're really heavy. And and then we didn't have the flaps working on the left side. So we're coming in, landing, and you could feel the plane shaking a little bit. It wasn't, he was trying to fight it to try to keep it balanced.
Wow.
And yeah, so and we come in and we're landing, and you definitely could tell it wasn't normal. It was like, it was like, I don't know what it felt like. Like a screeching, like thinking about like you're going, if you ever go in a car, you're driving down the road and then you feel the cars going over bumps, go, it kind of felt like that a little bit. Um, that type of crazy feeling. It had that feeling to it. And and then we come towards the end of the runway. We look to the right. There was had to been 25 to 30 fire trucks all at the end of the runway waiting for us.
Wow. Wow. So we almost lost you, huh?
We didn't know how bad it was
They
until
didn't tell you.
the pilot kind of kept it to himself, and even the flight attendants didn't even know how bad it was. He was just kind of playing it off.
He's smart.
So then, yeah, so then we found out after we taxi off the runway over to the side, we park on the tarmac, and all the fire trucks are surrounding us, surrounding all of us. The reason why is because the brakes were overheating, and they're worried, and they wouldn't bring us to the gate because they're worried about the plane possibly catching fire because the brakes were so hot. So we had to sit there out there for about 25 minutes on the tarmac.
Crazy.
So that was my interesting story. So that's, and then they put us, so by the time we got back, it was like 12:30. And then they had to put everybody up in hotels, and, they had to give us food, and it was just, so, and then the next flight was going to probably be Thursday. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to come home. And so I just jumped on a flight this afternoon, came home, and this is where I'm here. So, but it was
Well,
interesting.
you're alive. We didn't lose our mentor. You know, losing you would have been valuable. So I mean, if you guys don't know, Mark is a very, very experienced creative finance investor, seller finance investor. Mark has done millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of deals. Mark, how many deals have you done?
I've done easily over $500 million of real estate seller financing strategies over the years. 30 years into this
500
business.
million.
30 years. So yeah, I can't believe it. I started in 1995, spring of 1995, and I love it. It's great. In this market condition right now is one of the best market. I like it when the market is in this type of condition at the moment. It's the best time, especially when homes are not selling, properties sitting on the market. We're sitting there earlier today on our mentorship call that we have on Mondays at 5:30, and we're going over like some of these people. One of the members, this guy's been trying to sell their home for in California. They started out like at 1.5 million. and it's been sitting on the market for like almost a year and a half, and now they're down to 900,000, and now they just want to walk away. So we're guiding it through and just literally taking the property over from the seller. They just want to walk away from it. Now, yeah, so it's going to work. Now that one is a little tricky because the rents are a little bit, it's not good for an investor. It's going to be mainly, it has to be designed for a homestead buyer living in there because you're probably paying a few $100s over market rent. So from an investor's point of view, it won't be good. But um, if you're doing it the right way, coming in and then turning on putting a homestead buyer in it, you still can make quite a bit of money on it. So that was the deal that we kind of really spent a lot of time on today, analyzing on how that, they wanted 1.5, they want some cash, and now they're to a point where they just want out. They're willing to walk away. So yeah, I'm excited about that particular deal. Watching that particular investor take it down. So cool. So I'm
Awesome.
glad everybody's here, and we got people on camera today.
There we go. Welcome in, everybody. So, real quick, let us know in the chat where you're tuning in from. I'm here in Cincinnati. Mark's down there in South Florida. Let us know where you're tuning in from. We have people all across the country on this call, whether you're over on Facebook or over here on Zoom. We got Illinois, which is Michael. Awesome. Welcome in. Which part of Illinois? Go ahead and throw that in there as well. We like to know what city. I'm in Shorewood. Awesome. Awesome. All right. So, Mark, this is a great time for people to ask questions, right? So,
Absolutely.
Mark has all this experience, all this bundled up, ready for you. You can ask questions as much as possible. We are here for you today. We are here to answer your questions. Anything you have. Just feel free to drop them in the chat. We love when you unmute yourself and you can talk on the mic. If you're over on Facebook, feel free to drop it in the chat, or I dropped the link over there as well. You can feel free to hop on over here and hop in here and ask away. All right, Michael has a question. What's up, buddy?
What's going on, Matt? What's going on, Mark?
How you
Uh,
doing, man?
Not too bad. Thanks for asking. I hope you guys are doing well as well. Mark, so I actually found out about you on the Deal Machine webinar. And I'm one of those guys that is not the type that's going to sit around and get analysis paralysis. Instead, I'll rather execute and learn by failure, even if I do it wrong. So I took over a property in Las Vegas, which I believe I got a really good deal. Ended up giving the seller 15 grand. I'm already up like 100 in equity in less than about a year. But I wasn't sure. I was getting mixed reviews and information about either placing the property in an LLC or placing a property in an LLC under a trust. And so what I did is mortgage stayed in the seller's name. It's a 4.1625 VA loan. I paid them off. I used Creative TC firm to do it, and then I placed it in a LLC. I moved title over to an LLC that I own. What would you what feedback would you have for the way that I did it?
Awesome. Congratulations, man.
Thank you.
And by the way, you said you're from Illinois. I think
Well, I'm
that's
from Vegas originally. We just moved here about a month and a half ago.
okay, because that market, there's some good markets out there in Illinois, out in the suburbs of the area a little bit. One county you want to stay away from, but I've seen some great deals out there where the numbers really make sense. The 1% rule in certain markets out there can do really well. Yeah, it can be a little bit of pain, but as long as you understand the states and the rules and regulations. But yeah, I'm not an attorney, but I'm gonna tell you how I would do it. I always put all my properties into a trust, and then I usually have the LLCs, the beneficiaries. It's just so much easier. It helps with the doing sales. It doesn't stop it. It just helps it. It creates the anonymity aspect of it. So, and usually years ago, we used to put it like in 123 Main Street
Yes.
trust. Nowadays, we kind of move away from it because the lenders are starting to be aware of that's what investors are doing, and it's typically a subject to.
Mhm.
Um, so what I usually do is I will put in the seller's name, the last name of the seller, and I call it trust, whatever it may be. Like so, if I have a property, it'll be Monroe Trust, or like if Matt would be, Atwood Trust, something like that. And then inside there, I usually have my LLC be the beneficiary. That's how I set mine up. And then I will usually have a management agreement between my trust and a management company, like one of my management companies if I'm managing the properties. And then that's where I usually run my cash through, my funds through that. That's how I do mine. Um, because some of I don't want to have to get an EIN number. I don't want to have to go through that whole path and set it all up. So it just runs everything through that property. A couple things you want to be aware of when you, depending on what your exit is. Like I like to sell a lot of my properties on lease options, or it doesn't matter however you sell your property. Just make sure that the title company you're using, when they disperse the funds to you at the end, that they're okay dispersing it to the beneficiary, your LLC. Some companies are not; they want to disperse it to the trust. So you want to be ahead of that if you're selling a property, and if you can't, then you possibly need to um, take it out of the trust and put it in title of the LLC. And then some lenders are going to require that to be seasoned for like 30 days to 60 and 90 days, who are for the financing of it.
Mhm.
So just be those are the type of things you want to be careful of on that aspect of it. So, but typically I have all my properties in trust. Each one of them has their own trust. For it's again, it doesn't stop it from asset protection, but it stops it from anonymity. So it helps it like if the lender looks it up, as long as you make your payments on time. The
Mhm.
key to this though is making sure that you stay in the middle of it in the deal, like in controlling it. A lot of these guys are doing assignments, and that's where the problems come into play. They'll lock up a deal and then just assign it out, and just walk away from it. And then that's where a lot of the defaults. So in history, on the subject too, the default rates have always been below FHA and VA default rate. Right now, it's at a 19%. It's the highest it's ever been since subject twos have been around. And it's been around for God, going 30, 40 years, this strategy. But it's always been designed for us investors, experienced investors, to buy the deal, stay in the middle, and control it. So if our end buyer defaults, we usually step up and we make the payments. That's typically why it's been that way. And we usually get enough of a large enough down payment from our buyer to hold roughly 3 to 6 months reserves, depending on the state. We will want to hold those reserves in there to make sure that if anything does happen, it defaults. But typically, if that does happen, you end up coming out ahead. Yes, you end up covering it for a little bit, but you turn around and putting another property in that, and not somebody else in that property, um, and the property values usually have gone up by that time.
Mhm.
And a lot of times these people put money into the property, but a lot of times I will work with my buyers, my tenant buyers. Hey, something stuff comes up, I'll work with them, come up with a payment plan, and make sure they can go back and plan. If it, but it, a lot of it really comes down to is making sure that I'm underwriting my buyer correctly, and oftentimes I will run them over to an RMLO, a licensed RMLO, to make sure that long as they're going to follow stay on path, whatever the term is, like if it's a 3 year, 5 year, whatever it may be, that they're going to be able to buy that property, because I want them to buy that property, because that's where I want to get my capital out and take that capital and redeploy it. Like you're talking about that deal there, you got over $100,000. You'll be able to take that capital roughly 5 years and deploy that into probably 5 or 6 other assets instead of having it tied up into one asset. So that's how I do mine. I usually like to do it, set them up, and it's a great because everybody wins. The seller wins because you help the seller out in a bad situation.
Mhm.
Your buyer, if you're putting a tenant buyer, you're helping them out, or you might be holding it yourself. You could be holding it as a rental. Everybody has their own strategy. For me, I like to buy through seller financing and sell through seller financing. You negotiate a really low down payment with my seller and use my end buyer's capital to take the deal down and put money in my pocket up front. Cash flow for me, I look for a minimum of $500 a month. A lot of times I'm more than that. I do have one where I was only cash flowing $49 a month, but I had $109,000 of equity in it. So that one was a little different because I had so much equity in that deal. So you have to kind of look and weigh it out as an investor, what's your pros and cons and your risks on it. We always want the cap. I mean, we always want the equity. That's always a nice one. But I'm okay paying a seller close to top dollar of what the as is value is. And that's one thing about seller financing. Everybody's using the ARV.
Mhm.
To compare apples to apples, you really need the ARV. I mean, I'm sorry, the actual value to be able to see it, because most of these guys are not fixing the properties though, and that could be a $50,000 swing. I see people out there, oh, the ARV is this, but you're buying it the as is value. You're not doing the fix and flip burr model, and that's the burr model, the ARV stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's a great, great model. But when you're doing seller financing to compare apples to apples, you want to know what the as is value. Because I sell properties as is to my end buyers. Well, usually whatever the as is value, I add 10%. So if it's like a handyman special, I want to sell it at the as is value. I'm not, oh, this is what, yes, you can kind of say what it will be is, but that's how I do mine. I want to know because if something happens, right, and you need to take that and they default or whatever, if it's a 50, if they're selling it to you as the ARV and the as is value is $50,000, and you need plan B to get out of that property, you don't have that $50,000 now because they're adding it into their assignment fee, which is fine. But you remember, as you as an investor buying that property, if something happens, you got to sell that property quickly, you could be upside down by 50,000. So that's something to keep in mind. And a lot of people don't realize that when they're doing they're looking at it because they come from the wholesale world, wholesaling properties to fix and flip buyers, and they're using that model. But in the seller financing world, it's a whole different model. So keep that in mind. So, and I get it why that's what they learned. That's what they learned from. But I've seen deals like a huge, like $50,000, and people get stuck. I can't tell you how many times I get people calling me that went through other programs that learned how to do all this stuff, and they screwed up because they're using it as is value and they can't get out of the property. Fix and flip guys. I'm sure some of you guys are coming across a lot of guys out there doing fix and flips, and they can't get out of the deals because they can't rent it, they can't refinance it because they're upside down. There's not enough equity in it. We keep coming across those guys all the time right now, and it's like I feel bad for these guys. They didn't do the numbers correctly. So the only thing you can do is just go back to the hard money guy and just kind of work something out. But typically, those hard money guys are the ones who want to taking a property back and just reselling it themselves. So that's kind of so. Hopefully, that goes back to your trust. They're talking about the trust thing. Make sure once you start understanding the trust, a lot of these guys get a little fancy and they're like, oh, you know what? We're just gonna have the seller put the property in a trust and then transfer the beneficiary over to me, and then I don't have to close on it. Be extremely, 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 extremely careful because if you do that and you didn't have an attorney or third party, you're the big bad investor and you sold that property from the seller. So just be very cautious of that. Some guys do that. They're like, oh, you know what, Mr. Seller, we're going to go ahead and create a trust. We're going to put you as a beneficiary, and then we're going to sign the beneficiary over to me and my LLC. And if you don't go through a title company and you don't have a third party and something happens, they're going to say, oh, you stole that property from me. The second thing is that's also considered tax evasion because you're not paying the transfer taxes, the doc stamp. So be very cautious of that. Like Florida, they'll go after you. Some states will go after you on that. So just be very, very cautious. I always highly recommend if you're doing a subject to, always use a third party explaining it. Make sure you're using your disclosures. And a lot of times I even do mine. I'll record it like on Zoom. I'll go through the stuff and then I'll have the title company because you will have problems. Like if you're buying a property and it's an older person and the heirs come along and the children and like, what are you talking about? So I just come across a situation not too long ago where a property was purchased through a subject to from a mother and son. And even though the mother signed all the documents, the son let the mother believe that they still own the property and we were just a property management company. I'm like, we're putting $35,000 into a property, like for the water and sewer that we had to fix on this thing. No. So, but the mother signed everything and she's still, and they explained it to her, but she forgot that because the son was taking, there was equity and the son was taking the mortgage money, and she thought, and she was like, how come I haven't been getting any money? So the son was kind of misleading, even though that everything was disclosed and everything. So you always want to make sure all that stuff is recorded so you're protected. Cool. Did that help?
Definitely. Thank you, Mark.
Cool. I like it.
Awesome.
And I like those questions. Bring some good questions on.
All right, we got Chris asking, do you wholesale deals as well as using seller finance?
I don't really. I like to buy properties and hold my properties. I mean, I have wholesale properties back to the seller. I've done that before. Assign it back to the seller. Because I always tell sellers like, hey, those are typically like a sandwich lease option type of situation. Um, because if I'm buying a property through a subject to, typically the seller's financial distress. So I don't want to put it back onto the seller and let them be in control of it. That's a big, that's going to be a total mess. Um, but if it's a seller that's not financial distress, and I usually don't pitch a subject to, I'll pitch an alternative strategy. Um, on that one, I may do a lease option with a seller and go out and find my tenant buyer and assign it back to them. And I tell my seller, hey, like for example, like let's say the seller wants $2,500. But for me to, and because that's where the market rent is, for me to stay in a deal, I need to be around $2,000. So I'll tell the seller, hey, I'm not your buyer, but I may know somebody um, that's okay paying the 2,500. You know, they're going to give me a fee for that amount. And then, but if anything happens, you're responsible for the tenant. I'm completely out of it. But if you want me to stay in a deal, and if anything ever happens where my company, we step up to make the payments, or we make the payments on your behalf, we need our payment to be. And I've had buyers, I mean, I've had sellers drop that payment down to $2,000 because they wanted me to stay in the deal the way how I present it. Like I always say, hey, you know, I'm gonna end up, I'm the investor. I put people into properties. If anything, the agreement's between you and I. If anything ever happens to them, it doesn't matter. I'm still making the payments on your behalf. So usually that's my initial pitch. But then if they're when I'm underwriting the deals and they want more a monthly payment and the numbers don't work for me, I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm not the right buyer for you, but I may know somebody because I may do have a database and I'll say, hey, usually. And if I do that, I make sure that the seller gets at least 3 months reserves put away. So if something happens, that they have that. The way I structure it. So that might even come out of my assignment fee. So I want to make sure that but I don't do it that often. I usually can pitch them and show them me staying in a deal where I get the cash flow. It's beneficial to them, and I have them look me up and do, a lot of it up front is the credibility. And then I keep talking about this over and over and over and over. I can't repeat this, and I say this every time when I'm doing a Zoom, is when you're doing seller financing with a seller, it is a marriage. So when you sit there and you talk to the seller and you're getting to know the seller, 80% of it is getting to know each other. The reason why they're going to do a seller financing deal with you is because they like you and they trust you and they're going to go with you. So again, I treat it as the first time. Think of you dating your significant other the first time. You're getting to know each other. So that's typically, I'm transparent with my sellers and buyers. I always truthful upfront. Um, and hey, I'm in it to help the seller out. I figure out what their issue is and I solve the problem. And then I usually find my tenant buyer. I usually don't sell it to investors. I usually will sell it to a homestead buyer. I put in the property. Just got to remember, make sure you underwrite them. That's the key because you want to make sure they can afford it. That is extremely, extremely. And if you're selling it to them on a wrap or an agreement for deed land contract, just remember, there's consumer protection regulations. So you need to be aware of that. So you're not viewed as a predatory. Because you also, when you're putting it as a homestead buyer and you're selling it, you're viewed also as a loan originator. So some states, so you have federal and state regulations. You have the Dodd-Frank, you have the SAFE Act, the RESPA Act, and then other states have theirs. So that's why I always recommend using a licensed RMLO to underwrite them, and your buyer's the ones paying for it, not you guys. And even if I do a lease option, um, and the income is a little fishy, I'll still send it to an RMLO to make sure that they're going to be set up correctly to make sure that they're going to be able to afford the property. So that's something that I'm very critical about doing. So yeah, so that's how I do it. I just don't like doing assignments. I'd rather just stay in the deals and make more because I can do 5 deals a year on a creative deal and make just as much as a wholesaler does doing got it like 10 deals a month because the way how I do mine. Because when I sell it, when I'm making my deals, because typically when I do, let me give a quick example. I don't know, some people might have heard it. Like one of my members in a program, she came across a deal in Texas and she was just going to sign it because the property needed $37,000 worth of work. She didn't have the money. She was doing a fix and flip. Her money was all tied up. So she was going to do an assignment. I'm like, okay, what are you going to ask for in the assignment fee? Um, Matt, are we okay over on Facebook? I look like I'm frozen over there.
Yep, you're
Might
good.
be just my. Okay, cool. Sorry about that. Might be just my browser over there. So, anyways, um, She was going to ask for $15,000. I'm like, okay, when it's all said and done, how much do you think you're really going to make? She goes, I don't know, $8,000 to $10,000. So we went through the whole deal analysis. We underwrote that deal. She was going to make $171,000 over 5 years, and she still got $12,000 on the front end because we marked it as a handyman special. We told the people, hey, you know what? The property needs about 35, $40,000 worth of work, but if we go ahead and do the work, we're going to be wanting roughly about 60, $70,000 down. But if you're handy and you can do the work yourself, instead, we'll take 12 to $15,000 down, and you can do the work and fix the property up. So you just and you can take the work and do the work as your time. We ended up getting a buyer, and the buyer ended up putting $12,000 down. So she still made the money up front, cash flowing $750 a month, and then on the back end, she was going to make another like I don't remember, like 97,000 or like 115,000, something like that on the back end on a 5 year, when they paid it off in a balloon. Because typically, what I do is whatever the market value is at that time, we mark it up about 10 to 12% above that because we have to wait for our capital. So that's why we sell it as a premium. So, and think about that. If you do 3 to 5 of those a year, okay, and you build your pipeline up and you're getting another $100,000 on the back end, you're getting roughly, I look for a minimum $500 a month. And then you have those pay you off, like what Mike was talking about. I don't know what his exit strategy is in that particular deal, but his particular deal, if you have 5 of those a year and you're getting $100,000 coming to you in the back end of those, that's $300,000 to $500,000 a year that you're getting coming to you. Plus, you're generating all your new deals coming in, and you got your cash flow coming in. So it's like over 5 years, you can have $15,000 a month coming in passive income if you're doing just a couple of deals a year, and then you get all these loans paying you off, all these guys buying, paying you off, and then you're going to end up probably having some that you're going to end up holding as rental because you want your depreciation. So, anyways, whoops, I put my hand up. That's kind of weird. How did that happen?
It is the automation when you had your hand up like this.
Oh wow, interesting.
Yeah.
Cool.
Chris, are you able to unmute yourself and ask those questions?
Sure. You guys hear me?
Yep.
What's going on, man?
Sorry, I'm like in multiple meetings. There's paces starting soon. So yeah, I'm big into seller financing, like big into it, everything. I'll apply it to eating the apples. If I can seller finance apples, I'll do it. Whatever. This can be applied to any situation. It's a human
Absolutely,
situation. It's
it
two
is. I
humans
do.
coming up to an agreement.
Yep. All the time. I've done multifamily land development. I helped these two brothers buy a plumbing business for $8 million with zero down, and we end up getting want to say about $225,000 back at closing on that plumbing business. It was an amazing deal.
That's amazing. Yeah, you can apply it to businesses and business properties, you know.
Sure.
So what
Yep.
I'm
What's
trying
your
to do
question?
right now is I'm trying to apply it to boats. I'm trying to apply it to acquiring boats. I actually have a few boats already in interest. I'm just right now applying to get some private money lending at 6%, but everything could be done possibly. 6% I think is better than the banks. So I'm going with personal because I'm a Canadian investor. I'm from Canada, I'm from Montreal. I have my own condo here. I have a bunch of equity in here, but I can't even take the money out. How would you
You're
go
in
about?
Good old St. Catherine Street up there.
Yeah, I'm right. I'm right near. I am right near. I'm living like down the street from it. Well, not down the street, just over the bridge, or
I
in
used to be,
Braston.
I grew up in Vermont, and we used to go up to Montreal all the time because the drinking age was
18.
lower than, yep, at the time. But go ahead. What's your question?
Yeah, so basically, what would you do now to start acquiring properties? And like right now, I got my first property. I'm going through private money lender. I think that's the best option. I'm gonna Section 8 it immediately, and it's gonna be in Cleveland, Ohio. I got a good deal. I wholesaled it, but it was a cash deal. How would you go about applying the seller financing to acquiring businesses that are chartered? Because this is where I'm having a hard time now. I'm trying to offer a partnership and equity in these boats that are basically already owned by other people. So it's as if I'm selling boats, but over a period of months, to from one person to the other. So I'm basically like doing
Sure.
a creative deal that's just structured over months where it's low entry fee. So these chartering companies, I can get funding and partner up with them, give them equity back from these boats making money in the Caribbean. So this is where I'd like to get started with using seller finance because I had seen nobody use it before.
We
in
talked.
this area.
Have you and I talked before? Because
I
somebody
don't
else,
know.
was it, we haven't? Because somebody else I
No,
talked to was doing the same thing with chartering boats.
really. Okay, you got to
Yeah,
put me in contact because I'm looking for partners. Exactly, people
I
that
don't
know
remember
this.
I don't
Oh
remember who it was.
God.
I talked to so many people, but but it's great. It's a great model. That was probably like 6 months ago. I talked to the guy. I want to say it was out in Seattle area, if I recall correctly. He was trying to do the same, but yeah, it's just it's the exact same concept as real estate. Just take the same principles and just move it in. Are you having a problem talking with the sellers and convincing them?
Well, it's more the partnerships. Like I have the due diligence materials already and everything. It's just the partnerships seem to be like they want a lot of cash. So it's a lot of it's hard to buy boats, bring those boats, and it's like these are nice boats. These are $300,000 boats, 10% down. So it's like it's still a huge chunk that I have to try to get from my private money lender to bring it to the table. So I want to add that in the value of the equity that I can wholesale and then charge them a basic interest per month since I'm not getting any interest. So that's what I'm trying to do with properties and as well.
So
So
why were let's back up for a minute. Why are these guys wanting to sell? Like, why would they want to sell their charter boat business?
it's well, mostly it's them wanting to partner up. I haven't seen anybody trying to sell it so far, but it's people selling their boats that I'm trying to get into the partnership. There's
But
one actually,
why are they selling?
they need the money. Everyone so far that I've talked to,
Why do
they
they
need the
need them?
money.
Why do they need the money?
I don't know. They've probably made wrong choices
Let
in
me give
life. They
you
bought
let
boats.
yeah. So let me take a step back here. So one of the when you do seller financing, it's all psychological. And it's a marriage that I was talking about, kind of going through it. And I'll give you a real quick example. So we had one of my members, we had a deal. It was in Georgia. Okay. And this is where you have to kind of open your mind a little bit different from what your
Yeah.
model that you're trying to do now. You got to change your thought process. And I'll give you a quick example. So we had one of our members had a seller that was open to doing seller financing, and it was in Georgia. He wanted $30,000 down on a $128,000 home. It did not make sense putting 30,000, but I got on the phone with him, start building a rapport with him because this is so the report. I started talking to him about the report, like um, who like what is his most important thing at that moment in his in his life. At that moment, it was his dog. That was the most important thing. Okay. Then I found out he had 5 children. Then I found out he had he has some grandchildren. I found out he's a huge Atlanta Falcons fan. I found out he banks with a credit union. He's got good credit and he's retired and he lost his wife. Okay. And he's getting to know me at the same time. So this conversation goes on for about 30 minutes. So then I go to him, I go, Robert, I go, what are you planning on doing at $30,000? He goes, oh, I need $25,000 for a camper. Then I'm planning on going camping. I go, camping, or where are you going to go camping? He goes, I'm going to go to West Virginia in the New River. Then I'm going to go into Virginia in the Shenandoah Mountains, then Ohio, then Tennessee. Chris, let me ask you a question. When's the last time you've been camping?
Oh, that's been a long time.
When do you remember have an idea, or just think of
Maybe
a
like
place that you
at
went
least
camping?
10 years. Yeah. Here in
Where did you
Montreal,
go?
it's not very fun. We went up north to like I think it's Rawdon. And it wasn't very
Okay.
fun. Mosquito
Why
ridden.
wasn't it fun?
Mosquito ridden, not the most enjoyable experience ever.
But
And
I'm sure you've
even
been camping
sleeping.
someplace where I'm sure you've been camping someplace that was a good time. You guys all hung
Yeah,
out. You had a
yeah.
good time.
Yeah, yeah, probably. When I was younger, way younger.
All right.
I
So now, what did you do there when you went camping?
Well, that there was a party. There was parties. There was a lot of drinking. It was more and
Okay,
more of like less camping and more of a fiesta. That was a friend's birthday, so we were up north
that's
and
cool.
yeah, it's just
And did you spent the night there?
rainy. It was very rainy. That was the best part. The best part, the rain all night and
So
everything.
did you spend did you guys you spent the night?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. More than one, two, and then the third one, I was just like, we're gone.
Oh, cool. What kind of food did you guys cook?
Barbecue, mostly some all sorts of things. Barbecue. My friend brought some chicken, but it's cool. This is the conversation you need to create with people to try to develop that bond.
So I'm taking you there. You're
Yeah.
visualizing yourself there, correct? I did the same thing with the seller through the same exercise. So you kind of, so he's visualizing who's doing what he's going to be doing. So I do the same thing. So after I did that exercise, going through that whole process, I brought him back and I said, Robert, I go, I know you've been trying to sell this and sell a financing for 2 months. I go, what seems to be the problem? Because everybody's offering me a low down payment. I go, how many offers you had? I think he said like 12 or 15 offers from other investors. So I go, Robert, I'm going to be frank with you. Nobody is going to put $30,000 down when they can go get an investor loan, put less capital down. But this is what I'll do.
Exactly.
I'm going to give you $3,500 down. You mentioned that you belong with a credit union. They have great rates. Go ahead and take the loan out for the camper for the $25,000. And on the 20th of every month, we'll automatically have the payments pulled directly out of our account and send the payment directly to the credit union on your behalf. What we'll do is also is we'll go into Portal, and in a portal, we'll go to Gmail just for that particular property. So whenever there's a notice, it goes out, it goes to you. So you get a notice of it and it goes to my bookkeeper. We got that deal for $3,500 down, and we're cash flowing $475 a month. And our end buyer did a lease option on it, and our end buyer put $18,000 down. So out of that $18,000, we had to give the seller his $3,500, and we're making the payment. So we got that deal because I listened to him. He
Yeah.
got to know me. We built a rapport. So why is it back to the boats? Why is the seller
Yeah.
selling?
Okay, the one boat that I'm getting right now, he needs the money to move to Hawaii. He wants to go and live with his family and just like he wants land. He's sick and tired, but 15 years on the boat. He loves it. He loves boats, but he's lived there,
So
been there,
then at
done
that
that,
point,
type of thing.
right. So at that point, I'll do a cash offer, low ball. It has to be as an investor, makes sense. If not, then this is what my offer is. So, and then 70%, 70% of my deals come from follow-ups. And then I also do an amortization schedule. I always send an amortization schedule, show people how much money they're going to make. I had this one couple, they were willing to do a seller financing in North Carolina, but they only wanted to do it for 3 years, and I was paying top dollar. I didn't feel comfortable with where the market was. So I did an amortization schedule, sent it over to them, told them to pull it up. I said, go down to line 120. This is 10 years in this scenario. How much money would you have collected? I think they said like $89,000. I'm like, okay, over to the right. What's that balance you're paying off? They said whatever the number is. And add those two numbers together, they added it up. And then how much money were you asking? They're making an extra $179,000 becoming the bank over 10 years. Because they saw that, they went with a 10-year because like, oh wow, and they can diversify it. So I do an amortization schedule too when I send offers out to people. I know sometimes we want to try to get zero interest, but then sometimes if they're sophisticated, I will go ahead and give them like a 4 or 5% interest on it. As long as my numbers work, I'm not greedy. As long as I do enough deals.
If I get the 4 or 5% interest, generally either a mortgage takeover, I'll stack on a little 1% sometimes just to make sure that I can keep on making that money per month. Still hasn't gone through a contract like that. I'm still working on my first few deals. It's only been 3 months I've been doing this, but I'm like normally you would apply a balloon payment and refinance after 6 years or whatever it is. Generally 6 years is when you've built up enough equity, possibly in the
Yep.
property. But with boats, you do not build equity. So it would be paid per month over an amortization. So what I've done is 10 years
Okay.
amortization, and it's just payments. There's no balloon. So,
Sure.
and some of them do want balloons, but then it's like I gotta go get a loan for the boat, and then that's a bad idea. Or if I
Yep.
stacked up enough money from the chartering partnership. But what happens? I want to know who are these end buyers for these other things? Like when you apply seller financing, generally it's to acquire something and it feels like it's more for a buy and hold technique when you can
I
sell
like
this to other people.
Yeah, for me, I like to buy and create paper. Buy it through seller
Yeah.
financing and stay in the middle and create the arbitrage.
Yeah.
I don't have
Yeah.
to worry about
Exactly.
those leaky toilets. So your sellers may not be motivated enough if they want that much capital down. And then
Hmm.
also 70%, 70% of my deals come from follow up where I'll present an offer that works for me. I'll make offers that work for me, and yes, they still work for a seller, but I don't go out of my way and give the seller what they want. I see too many people go ahead and structure offers up there, give the seller what they want, and then they try to go out and do an assignment, and the deals don't make sense. I saw one where somebody wanted 40 or 50% down of what the value was, and I'm like, nobody's going to do that. Why would I put $200,000 down on a property and tie it into one asset when I can just deploy that into about 15, 20 assets? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, yeah,
Exactly. So
so Mhm.
what I try to
Go
get
ahead.
is low entry fee. What I've learned with Richard Taylor, I don't know if you know him. He's young. He's this young dude. He does a lot of creative deals. He puts everything through trust, kind of like you, exactly using the Grand Saint Germain Act and bypassing most of the things. But I do believe that you can apply that to like very, very strategically, very strategically. So what I've been doing is basically that, getting a low entry point, as low as possible, 5 to 10% down with 0% interest, and then try to work from there, you know. And generally it
Absolutely.
works. It works.
Yep.
And
I, I get a lot of my deals with no money down. So I have over 600 bird dogs
that's incredible. Can I bird
all the
dog for
time.
you, buddy? I'll do it. Hey,
I
man.
buy. Yeah.
Uh,
So like,
Send
for
me your buy
example,
box.
trashmen. Yeah. Trashmen. They know the neighborhood. Landscapers, snowplow removals, Uber drivers, mailmen, pest control. I just got somebody new. My home run deals come from hospice nurses. So the list goes on, and I get so many different, yeah. So I get a
That's
lot of
cool,
different
man.
type of, yep. So I built up a big network, and so those guys I'll pay about $700 a deal because we have to chase them down. And I have worked with other wholesalers, if they get the seller and they do it. But my hospice nurses, I usually give about $2,000 to 2,500 because they're calling me up as the lay down as a referral. So those are the best ones. But the trashmen, landscapers, Uber drivers, everybody out there, even um, home caregivers. They they take a screenshot on Zillow, they text it to a phone number, it goes to my VA. My VA will go ahead and chase it and track them down. And so I get a lot of deals that way as well. So it's all about building up a huge referral network.
I currently have one property under contract. It's in Cleveland, Ohio. I don't know if you know any buyers, but I would love to JV on it. There's some extra land that comes with it, the land lot right next door. So it's pretty cheap for that price. It's a triplex, Section 8 ready. So I don't know if that's something that could interest you, but I would love
Oh,
to send that over to your dispo team. I have it currently under contract, just signed today.
oh, nice. Congratulations. Yeah,
Yes.
I'm always open to deals as long as it makes sense and really low entry fee. So cool.
This is a
You got any
cash
other
deal, though. That's it.
questions?
It's not seller finance. Nope. But yeah, nope. That would be it. That would be it. Thank you very much. You're very, very, very like knowledgeable about this. I immediately
I've
sent your
been,
Zoom link to everybody. I was like,
yep.
this dude is dropping bombs. Guys, this guy's
I,
explaining a lot.
I've been in this game for 30 years, a long time I've been at this. So I've been, I've seen it all. I mean, I've done land development. I got a seller, he wanted $1.5 million for a piece of land. And it was on public water and sewer. Instead of 1.5, he made 3.1 million on it. And
Wow.
we ended up building 49. We got in a deal with no money down. And we built 49 homes. We took the loan out against the property to do the entitlement, and we would build 5 homes at a time.
Yeah, that's
So
pretty much the idea with seller financing. Is you take that cash deal that would cost $100,000 and you buy 10 homes with it instead.
so instead of going out to raise capital from outside investors, I use the seller's assets as my capital and make them. So good. So Matt, we have more questions.
We got one over here on Facebook, but first I want to mention Mark does have a mentorship program for anybody that is on this call and they want to find out more about how you can learn from Mark, whether you have 0 deals or you have 100 deals. Obviously, Mark has some experience. He's been doing this. He's done 3,000 deals. So, just real quick, just if you want, I'm going to drop a link here for you to schedule a call. It's a it's a free call, no sales in it, just to see if it's a good fit for you. We want to make sure that we can help you and that you can actually go out and do this because not everybody is set up and ready to go out and do this. But also, we do help a lot of people in the 2 to 5 deal range. We help them scale big time. That's one of the big things that we help do. So Mark, right? I mean, what would you say about the 2 to 5 deal people?
Those are the ones that usually come in because they've already put 20, 30% down. They do the traditional way. A lot of husband and wives couples want to kind of go to that next level because they've already tapped on it. For example, myself, the reason why I got into this and started doing real estate at such a young age, my first deal was 19, but I grew up in poverty, super poor in Vermont. It was just myself, my two sisters, and myself. And on top of it, I had a severe case of ADHD and dyslexia. So I was always that one kid and they couldn't sit still. So I always felt like I was out of place. But what happened was, believe it or not, at the age of 15, I went to work at McDonald's. And my ADHD made me excel because I can multitask, do 100 things at once. And then I realized, hey, I got this talent. I can multitask, put systems in place. But I knew I wanted to be able to have that financial freedom. And I knew real estate was the way to go. 90% of people make their wealth that become millionaires through real estate. And even people that do have money and they have businesses, they always, because all the tax advantages is all done through real estate. So Did that answer your question, Matt? I forgot what your question was.
Yeah, that was good. That was right. Yep. All right. Just we got one over here on Facebook. How do you handle the due on sales clause when it gets called from a mortgage?
Knock on wood, knock on wood, I've never had a due on sales clause.
Grand
Um,
Saint Germain Act. The Grand Saint Germain Act, if you put it in there, the title trust, they can completely negate any due on sale clause.
it's still, they can still call it due though.
Oh,
They
really?
can. Oh
Even
yeah,
with
it
the
doesn't
grain?
stop it.
Really? I thought it
Yep.
completely stopped it.
No, it does not. It's just it camouflages it, but it does not stop it.
Oh, wow.
And that's usually why I get ahead of it. But I've even seen people put it into a trust and they screw it up and put the new buyer's name on insurance, and then the lender gets a copy of it and they've called the loan due. Um, Typically, if you just talk to a lender and figure out what it is, what you can do is you can always transfer it back to the seller and then just do a different type of seller financing strategy. Like for me, I never ever pitch a subject to a seller that's not financial distress. That's how we end up getting so many deals. We go head to head with people pitching subject to, and we get the deals because other seller type of seller financing strategies to use. I call it like a tool belt, depending on what the seller's needs are. That would determine the tool, like an agreement for deed, land contract, installment sale, sandwich lease option. There's so many other different type of seller financing strategies than just subject to. So, um, in that case, if a loan does get called due, just transfer it back to the seller and just go ahead and just come up with a new arrangement. Just do a different type of agreement. You can do a sandwich lease option. There's so many different ones of going about it, but typically, like what Chris is saying, if you put it into a trust, it will help camouflage it and just make sure you have everything set up correctly, so it doesn't trigger it. Because again, I've seen it happen so many times, and people that I know this one gentleman that purchased a subject to from through an assignment, and they had it all screwed up because they didn't realize the loan servicing company, when they make a payment, that the loan servicing company holds a check for 2 weeks. And what happened was these guys didn't pay the mortgage. Like what I do on mine, my mortgage payments go out on the 25th of every month, even though I don't have my payment from my buyer yet. That's how I do mine. But what these guys were doing is, so the buyer made his first payment like on the 5th, then the next one was the 9th, then the next one was the 18th. Well, when that loan servicing company disperses the funds, that seller's mortgage became late and it became a whole big mess. And they did what was called a performance deed, and they wanted the seller wanted the mortgage back in the property, and they took $50,000 from the wrap buyer. The whole thing got all screwed up, and the seller was about to sue them for $130,000. It was a great deal because they're cash flowing $1,200 a month on that deal. And they called me up, and I'm like, dude, just. And they had all the properties in one LLC, so the attorney knew exactly they're going to go after all the properties. I said, just give the deal to the seller and let the seller make that $1,200 a month. So that's how they got out of it on that case. But make sure all that stuff is set up correctly, because that seller's mortgage ended up becoming delinquent because a loan servicing company held that payment for two. So I always have 3 months reserves for that particular reason. And I'm always making my payment no matter what on the 25th of every month. It goes out automatically to the mortgage company. And then if the buyer has, I'm sorry, if the seller's paying the seller's equity, so I pay the mortgage and then other funds go directly to the seller and they get a check as well. So that's how I do mine. It's really simple once you have it set up and automated, but I always use a loan servicing company with me and my buyer. But
So if once it comes due, like if they do call it, are you going to go refi the property? What are you going to do?
you can. There's a lot of options. You can refinance it if there's equity, if they've been, your buyer's been or whatever's been paying on it. You can transfer it back. If it's a you can you can create notes and sell notes. So that's another whole game, is once you understand how to originate this stuff, you have another whole market where you can sell these notes. A lot of investors that have been doing this a while, they'll do an 80% for, like if they're wrapping it, they'll do like a 70 or 80% first, and then do a second, and then sell that first mortgage off, and then you can take that money and you sell that mortgage, and they can use that to pay. So there's a lot of different ways of going about it. You can create the note, sell the note, and use that money to pay off the underlying lien, because a lot of the note buyers are not going to want the subject to, they're going to want that, and you can take that money and pay that off as well, and then carry your equity portion in it as a second mortgage and collect payments that way. You can transfer the property back into the seller's name, or you can refinance it. there's a lot of different ways of going about it.
Awesome. All right, and I did put the link down here in the chat for everybody over on Facebook and Zoom. Go ahead and schedule a call. It's no hassle, no sales, just to see if it's a good fit. It's a 15-minute call with either Alex or Reese. It's just to see if it's a good fit for you and see if you're a good fit for the program. So, all right, Tashin, what you got?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
How you doing, man?
Doing amazing. Came in here to share a win. I just did my biggest deal that I've done in real estate in the entire 5 years that I've been in real estate.
Congratulations. Let's hear it.
Let's do it.
So I had a gentleman that had seven houses under one LLC. He was a fix and flipper. He got a hard money loan for only 6 months. The project went longer than 6 months. He ended up in the accelerated hard money 18% issue. They were scheduled to take his house, all seven houses, tomorrow in court. We came in, stopped the foreclosure using my expertise as foreclosure. Once we stopped the foreclosure, once we have successfully stopped it, we're on track to make a $20,000 consulting fee for our foreclosure business, and they signed over 50% of the entire portfolio that has $1.5 million in equity right now and is bringing in $17,000 a month in rental income as we speak.
Awesome. Is that the deal we talked about a couple weeks ago or a month ago?
This one just came to me about a week ago. So the one
Oh,
we talked
nice.
about a few weeks ago,
Yep.
I don't think I ended up doing that deal.
Got it. Congratulations. I mean, that's the beauty of it. Once you get in this and you start networking and you've been at this for a while, deals start coming in from all different directions. It's all about networking. You know, I was on a podcast a couple years ago, and they asked me a question: what is the one thing that is totally different in real estate versus in this? What's different in the real estate business compared to other businesses? Your competitors. Your competitors are your business partners, and you end up making money together. And there you go. There's a perfect situation right there. So I love it. Congratulations, man. I'm so happy for you.
Yeah, thank
Awesome.
you. Thank you for,
Cool.
everything you taught me. It took some time, but I officially get to join the Millionaire Net Worth Club.
There you go. Congratulations. I love it. I like it. Nice job. Gonna like
Yeah.
that one a lot. So we'll get you on a podcast sometime. We'll talk a little bit more about it too. Right,
Hell
man?
yeah. I'd love
Cool.
that.
Yeah, we'll reach out. I like it. Congratulations.
All right, in
Nice job.
touch.
I'm so happy for you. Love
Thank
those. I
you.
love wins like that. That's what it's all about. And then everybody's good. So cool.
Tashin's a part of Mark's program too.
Yeah, it was one of the first ones in it a long time ago.
That's awesome. Congrats,
Yeah,
Tashin.
I'll tell you guys, I've got several mentors. This guy is the smartest one and the most versatile one. So you guys ought to be working with Mark for sure.
appreciate it.
Awesome. So if we have we have about 8 minutes left. Does anybody have any questions? This is your time to get a question from one of the best. One of
Mark,
the best out there.
have you
Feel
ever
free- Yeah,
heard
Michael,
of
go ahead.
you ever heard of replace your mortgage? These guys are talking about velocity banking, where you're using a HELOC to pay down the mortgage on a property within, I don't know, less than 5 years, 5 to 7 years.
What are they doing? Just paying it rapidly, like extra payments?
Yeah, I mean, like I had expressed that I was making a whole additional mortgage payment. I'm sorry, principal only payment every
Yep.
single month. So that was going to cut off like 16 years of the mortgage. And there's a gentleman that said what they're doing is, because a mortgage is simple interest and a
Hmm.
HELOC is not, even if the HELOC is at a higher rate, if you're using the HELOC sort of like a bank account, having your monthly deposits going there and then doing these big chunks, 20K every 3 or 6 months, you'll
Sure.
actually pay it down way faster than just using the loan.
I like that, but for me, I'd rather take that capital and deploy it into more assets. That's me. Like my other half, she's like, why don't we pay the mortgage off in our primary residence? I'm like, well, we're at a 2.75% interest rate. That's free money. So in her mindset is always about paying. And I get it. I mean, some people have that. They want to be debt free. I have a good friend of mine that lived here. He had a 3.5% interest rate. He could have rented that thing out and made roughly about $2,700 a month, but instead his mother was giving him a house because I'm in South Florida. His mother was giving him a house in Seattle. It was roughly about $1 million, but they had to move out there and stay in that house for about 2 years because otherwise they would get hit with taxes out there in Seattle. For you have to own it out there for 2 years. But he didn't want any debt, so he sold his home because his mother, he had to buy a house for 50,000 from his mother. He didn't want any debt. I'm like, dude, you'd be cash flowing, and then that value, that property, if he did what I said, hold on to it, it went up in about another $50,000 easily. So I don't know. For me, I'd rather take my capital and deploy it and control more assets. That's me. Everybody has their own investment strategy. Um, if you have a ton, but even me, I'd rather take that money and redeploy it into more assets and
Yeah.
generate more passive income because the assets go up.
Yeah.
And I like being a bank. I like controlling and creating notes and staying in the middle and creating the arbitrage. I go to a lot to these seller financing note conferences and I speak at a lot of them. Um, and they're like, why don't you sell your notes? And I'm like, I look at passive income. Like if I want to take some time off, I know I had that money coming in. I don't have to keep grinding it. I know a lot of people out there. Like I was supposed to be in Cape Town right now. I usually go down there. And before that, I was traveling for 7 weeks. So I was supposed to be in Cape Town. I was going to be down there for 2 weeks. And the last summer before that, I was down there for a month and a half. This Zoom would have been at 1:30 in the morning, or almost 2:30 now. So, but which I don't mind, because I had the whole entire day and the food is amazing and a lot of vineyards and a lot of great hiking. I'm in Florida, so I like to get out of Florida in the summertime. I love it here in the winter. So, and where in Illinois did you move to?
Shorewood, like Joliet area.
I don't know where that area is. Is
So,
it
southwest suburb of Chicago.
okay? Cool, nice. You like it?
I do. It's a big change of pace from Vegas, but I'm definitely not staying here for the winters. I'll probably leave like mid-December and come back March 1st.
Be a snowbird. I did that
Exactly.
from 2009 to 17. Live in Florida and then Cape Cod area. But my other half, she's not a New England fan, so I was like, oh, because I really enjoyed it up there, New England in the summers. So, but it was good. I'm glad to meet everybody. I know we have, and by the way, if anybody wants to know more about my program is nowhere near the cost of what all these other programs out there, fraction of what everybody else is. So, and I only bring in roughly about 3 people a month. I just keep it really tight and small, 3 to 5 people, if that. So, because I'm out there actively doing deals. So, by the way, I'm buying land to do land development. If anybody comes across anything that I can develop, I'm right now looking at 180 acres up in New England to do a big development on that one up there too. So, and that's why I like doing seller financing, strategies. That one will be a little different because we're going to actually have to get some financing to put the infrastructure in that particular one, but it's still going to be a nice deal and with very little capital. And then once you start doing deals, also, I know you guys talked about some of you guys talked about raising capital. I'm going to give you guys another good nugget here about raising capital. Who here has gone to a convention, any type of convention that you went and spent the night, like at a hotel? Has anybody ever, you guys all have done that? Okay. When you go to a convention, where do you guys normally hang out and network out afterwards?
Hotel bars or somewhere like
Sure. Usually the lobby bar.
that.
Okay. Well, what I do is I go to conventions that are not real estate. So there's one down here in Miami. It was at the Ritz-Carlton. It was a cardiac physician convention. I can't get in because I'm not a cardiac physician. I'm not a cardiac physician. I went and hung out the lobby bar. I'm like, what are you guys doing? I just started networking. What do you do? I do real estate. Oh, I wish I get into real estate. I just don't have the time. Ding, ding, ding. Or I work with people such as yourself. I raised $475,000 on that one.
Smart.
So keep that in mind, those type of things. You know, you guys all been to those things. So just that's a great way to kind of and network with them, find them on social media and start talking to them. Don't go into pitching deals, just start talking about some of the stuff you've done. Don't go into it, just don't talk about deals. This is what I've done. This is what, and hey, what do you want to do? Why don't you get into real estate? Just build a rapport, just like your seller. And then in your CRM system, set up your sellers or I'm sorry, set up your capital partners just like sellers. Do drips when you do a deal, a nice one, and have them get it. So treat that whole area as another whole lead generation. Then you'll be able to have your capital partners there when you need them. I went to another one. Speaking of Vegas, I went to a international solar convention in Vegas. And this thing was huge. It was like 3 football fields. That one I paid to go into the conference, started walking around. But a lot of people from international. And at the time, I think Trump's might be changing it, but at the time, for them to become citizens in the US government, they have to invest $500,000 into a business. We were doing a syndication type of deal, type of thing. So we got 5 of them. Oh no, 4 of them invest $500,000 each, and they became citizens. So just kind of throw that out there. You can kind of do those type of things. Just get out there and network. And also your local business chamber of Congress is pretty good, but that one's a little, you have to be there early in the morning. It's a little bit, but I like going to the other conventions that are not real estate related, like people that have capital. Cool. All
I'll be
right.
going to some local restaurants in the next coming weeks. We have the tennis tournament coming to town, so
Oh, there you go. Those are good ones. And golf, high golf courses are always good. You know, always. I have a buddy of mine. I don't do it, but he goes by himself, plays golf, and just starts talking to people. And that's how he's a real estate investor. And that's how he raises all his capital. He's done really well.
awesome. All right. Well, that's it for tonight, guys. If you guys are interested in learning more about Mark's program, just schedule a call. It's free. There is no sales behind it. It's just a couple questions to see if it's a good fit for you. We want to make sure that we can service you and make sure we can help you be successful in this journey. And we want to make sure that you can be uh, helpful to the community as well. We like to make sure it's a win-win all the way around. So, Mark, what do you think? You feeling good?
I like it. A lot of great questions tonight. Thank you guys. A lot of great input and a lot. I love to some wins. I'm so happy with you. She did it. He's not on here, but I'm so happy he finally. He's been doing deals, but that was a nice home run deal for him. So I'm happy for him.
Yeah, that was definitely a home run deal.
Oh
So,
yeah, he did really well. So I enjoyed chatting with everybody tonight, and looking forward to talking and then chatting with everybody in the future. So thank you guys for joining. I appreciate it.
all right. Thanks, guys. See y'all.
Have a good night, guys.